Hey, what is happening, everybody? It is Damron. We are playing Elder Scrolls Online. The new High Isle expansion just came out, which brings us a new area to go to, High Isle and Amanos. And we also have a brand new card game introduced into the game, which is Tales of Tribute. And you can find players for this all over Tamriel. It's going to be indicated by this crown sign. This is the main city in High Isle, Gonfalon Bay. This is where you'll actually kind of start the quest associated with this card game. But in this video, I'm going to cover the basics of this card game. I'm going to have a lot of videos coming out. I've already hit Rubedite rank in ranked play. I've got a lot of nice little tricks to show you all. We're going to go over all the card decks and everything. But in this video, we're just going to cover the basics. So let's go ahead and get started. When you start a Tales of Tribute game, the first thing that you're going to be doing is picking your patrons. And you are going to pick two, and your opponent's going to pick two. When you're playing against NPCs, the NPC picks two, and then you pick two. But in ranked play, you'll pick one, the opponent will pick two, and then the first player again will pick one again. And the basics that you need to know right now is that each patron is given a deck of cards to that, and we'll go over all those decks in separate videos. I'm going to show you combos, the good cards, the bad cards in these decks. But once you've picked your four, you'll be dealt your hand, and you will have 6 gold coins, these treasury cards, which is worth 1 gold coin, and you'll have 1 card from each of the patron decks. So for this case, right, we've got the Halalu, the Duke, Red Eagle, and the Rajin deck that's being played. So we got one of each of those, and again, we're going to cover all of those a little bit later. So let's take a look here. Now we have our initial hand. So I've got 3 coins. I've got a card from the Rajin deck, which is worth a coin, and a card from the Halalu Grandmaster deck, which is worth a coin. Now the first player to go will just have the 5 cards. The second player will get a coin and his 5 cards. And then you can see I have 5 additional cards in my draw pile. So you start with 10, 5 in your hand, 5 in your draw pile. So the first thing let's go over is let's go over all of the patrons and how they're related to the game. So on the right side of the screen, you can see there are 5 kind of big cards with a circle kind of coin on them, right? These are your patrons. The middle one is always going to be the same. The other 4 are dependent on the decks that you chose. And the middle tribute patron is called the Treasury. That's always there. You can pay 2 golden coin and sacrifice a card from your hand or your play deck and remove it from the game and replace it with a writ of coin, which is a card that's worth 2 coins. So that's really valuable to do early on in the game. And again, I'll talk over all these things a little bit later. The other patrons all have specific abilities, right? So the Halalu says sacrifice you card in play, and you can gain basically the prestige equal to the cost of that card -1. So all of the patrons have an ability, and when you use that ability, the blue arrow that is kind of in the middle right now in the neutral position will move towards you, and it can either favor you, favor your opponent, or be neutral. All right, so now let's kind of look at the central portion of the playboard. This is called the Tavern, and there's always going to be 5 cards in the Tavern that are available for each player to get during their turn. So you can either use golden coins to buy these, where the cost of them are at the top. So you can see that 6 at the very top of this card. That's how much golden coin it would cost for me to buy that card and subsequently place it into my deck. Now these cards are based on the tribute decks that you initially picked in the game. So all of the patron decks are going to have specific cards that are built now into the Tavern draw pile, which you can actually click, and you can see all the cards that are available in the game. And these are going to come out as you play, because every time someone purchases a card from the Tavern, that will then be replaced by a new card. So also on the board, the other things that you can take a look at are your draw hands. So these are cards that you are going to be drawing. Now they're not in the order that you're going to draw them. It just shows you what cards are in that stack. In fact, you can also look at your opponent's piles as well. So he played first, so now he has a cooldown pile, which will be shuffled back into his draw pile. You can actually look at both of those and see what they're, what they just used or what they have coming. So let's kind of see how this plays out, right? Just kind of click on your hand and, play them out, and you get the coins or whatever's associated with those. So now you can see that my coin has gone up to 6, and now I can actually purchase anything in the Tavern up to a cost of 6. And of course there are things that cost more than 6. This is the very beginning of the game. We're just kind of going over the basics, right? And there are different types of cards that you can buy. You can buy agents, you can buy contract cards, and you can buy action cards. And we're going to go over those different type of cards just briefly, but also the thing that you can do during your turn is use your patrons. Now, the only thing I'll mention about the patrons right now is that you can only use one patron per your turn, and that includes the treasury patron. And there are cards that will allow you to use more than one patron in a turn, but just as a simplistic thing, just know that you can only use a single patron in your turn. So let's just play this hand out real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purchase one of the cards. Okay, this one costs 3 coin. You can see the cost at the top. It's blackmail. It's going to give me 2 power, and we're going to go over all the power. But also, I'm going to use my treasury tribute patron in order to remove one of my single coins and replace it with a rid of coin, which is worth 2 coin. Okay, so that's what I've done. And now you can see I have a rid of coin in my cooldown pile. And essentially what happens with the cooldown pile is once you've used all of your draw pile, the cooldown pile will be then reshuffled into your draw pile. Okay, so that's how you're kind of building your deck as you play. And then I drew the blackmail card, which gave me 2 power. That's going to be indicated by the red diamond, so you can see that right here. This is power. Power is used to do damage to the opposing team's agents. You can use power for some of the patron card abilities, and if you have any left over, it will be transferred to prestige at the end of your turn. And prestige is one of the ways that you're going to win the game if you get 40 prestige, and we're going to go over that. So you can see that as the middle blue number, and you can also see your opponent's coin, prestige, and power on the other side of the tavern. All right, so let's fast forward this game a little bit. So you see I'm just kind of ending my turn, and I wanted to show you essentially when your draw deck is empty, now that cooldown deck will get replaced over there, shuffled up, and now you have access to all the cards that you have been purchasing from the tavern or acquiring from the tavern, as well as losing all the cards that you got rid of, maybe with your tribute patron. So now I'm going to talk about agents, which are one of the type of cards that you can buy. Okay, you can either buy an agent or you can also buy a contract agent. Say an agent basically costs the coins on the top, and they also have a number on the bottom of the card, which is their health. So let's show you how it works here. I'm just going to kind of, use all my cards. So now I have 7 coin, and let's look at the 2 different types of agents you can either get. You can either get a contract agent or you can get a regular agent. Okay, so on the very top where it says tribute card by Gene the Purring Liar, and then it says agent. Okay, so that's how you know it's an agent card, and the coin cost for you to acquire that card's at the top, and now these also have a number on the very bottom. That's their health. Okay, because agents will then be put into the playing field when you play them. If you buy an agent, it's going to get put into your cooldown pile, and until you finish your draw pile, and then it gets put into your drawing pile, you don't have access to it. But again, there's some patron abilities that we could snag those out as well, but we're not going to be getting that complex in this video. So for now, let's purchase a contract agent, and contract cards are immediately played when you purchase them. So if you purchase a contract agent, this, instead of going to your cooldown pile, will be immediately played onto the playing table on your side of the tavern. So let's go ahead and purchase this. We'll show you how it works. If I click it, now I've used it. I also have to discard a card because of its ability, but I don't actually have to. If you don't want to discard one of the things that you're selecting, just press X and you won't discard anything. But now you can see that my agent card is in front of me on the board. Now it has the health on the lower part of the card, which is a 4, and essentially what that means is my opponent will have to get 4 power and then use that power on this card in order to kill it. Until my opponent kills this card, it will be in play there. And some of the contract agents, or just agents in general, don't necessarily have to be attacked. My opponent could just use their power to convert it to prestige if they want, but some of the agents have an ability called taunt, which forces their power to go to the agent before they can get prestige conversion. Okay, I know that's a little complicated, but when you play a couple matches, you'll kind of understand what I'm saying. So let's go ahead and advance just a little bit further. And the only other really thing to take note about the agents is when it's your turn, if the agent is still on your board, you'll see they'll have a glow around them as if they can be played. You can actually play your agents every turn to get the play effect. So if I use it, I'm going to gain 1 power. All right, so I highlight this card, I press A, and I've gained 1 power. And that also counts as using a card of that style, and that takes into context the combos. So you're going to see some of these cards. This one says combo 2, gain 3 power. What that means is if I play 2 cards in the same turn that are from the same deck, aka this is the Red Eagle deck, now I'm going to get that combo ability. Okay, so now my power went up to 7 because I actually gained 6 power from the card I just played. So you see now the kind of red diamond is a 7. So now that I have 7 power, I can use the patrons, use my coins, whatever, but my opponent has no agents in order to absorb any of the power. So when I end my turn, that power is now added to my prestige, and now you can see my prestige has gone up to 24. And we'll just briefly talk about the contract cards because it's pretty simple, but the variety of things that you can do with contract cards are really huge. And essentially, a contract card just allows you to perform the action that it's telling you to. Again, with the contract action cards, if you buy a contract action, it will be immediately used and then discarded. As opposed to just an action card like Custom Seizure here, I can use that and acquire a card with up to a 5 cost from the tavern, which I'm just going to go ahead and pick up Scratch here, just kind of advancing this. And then that Custom Seizure is now played into my played pile, which will then subsequently be placed into my cooldown pile. Okay, so you can see on the right now I have 2 piles. I have a played pile and a cooldown pile. So there are cards that affect the played pile and the cooldown pile separately. So we'll talk about that again as we get a little more advanced in these videos. But just knowing that the played pile is different than the cooldown pile is something you need to be aware of, right? So for the Grandmaster Halalu patron, for instance, he says sacrifice a card you own in play. That does not mean in your cooldown pile you would have to sacrifice a thing from your played pile. So you see my cooldown pile has stuff in it, but I wouldn't be able to sacrifice any of those. And the same thing goes for the tribute patron. I would again have to sacrifice something either in play or in my hand. So as an example, I'll just use Halalu, sacrifice a card. This one's going to give me 3 prestige, right? So it's going to add it in my turn and we're advancing. All right, so the last thing to kind of just briefly cover, and again, we're just covering the basics here, but the last thing to cover is how to win. Okay, and the way that you can win is 2 ways, and one of which is kind of has 2 portions in it, and that's prestige. So the first way that you can win is if you get 40 prestige, then it's going to be your opponent's turn. And if they cannot surpass 40 prestige, you win the game. So once you hit 40, your opponent has to get more than 40 in order to keep the game going. Now, if that happens, if they get higher than what you had, then it will be your turn again. And in order to keep playing, you have to get higher than what they got. And the first person to hit 80 prestige, or the first person that is not able to surpass the opponent's prestige amount, the game ends. The other way that you can win is by getting favor of all 4 of the patrons, which is a really easy way to win against the NPCs in this game, but not as good of a method against players unless you're using the cards that can allow you to use more than 1 patron in a turn. But essentially, if you gain favor of all 4 patrons, the game will immediately end. So I'm going to go ahead and take Grandmaster Halalu, use his ability, but you see I have all favor of the 4 patrons, so the game is immediately over. So you don't even have to worry about the prestige. So that's kind of the basics of this game. I've got a lot of videos coming out. I'm going to cover all of the decks. We're going to look at some advanced tactics. I've been playing this a lot. Again, I've hit Rubedite in the PvP ranked mode, and I'll show you guys a lot of cool tricks, but this is just an introductory video, and I hope you guys found it helpful, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.